Hi there.
Hello,
I'm here with my good friend,
Bradley Bowers.
and he's holding a Edgar Allen
Bro.
Bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've invited Brad B onto my. Well, for some reason, I'm thinking podcast is the word, but it's. I don't know. I don't know what this is. This is a new series. Yeah, but Brad's focus is Edgar Allen Poe. I don't know if his focus is Edgar Allen Poe, but he knows Edgar Allen Poe more than me. And we were already talking a little bit about him before. God, I feel weird. This is a breakthrough already because I don't know who I'm talking to, but now I have someone to talk to. I have
Podcast.
friend. So, yeah, actually, I'm gonna talk to you.
Sounds good.
Tell me. In preparation of this, I was like, all right, let me read some Poe a little bit. I read like Annabelle Lee and the Raven again, but then I read like all the little biography excerpts, people who hated him, people who loved him. He's a very controversial guy. Could you tell us about his backstory, or?
Yeah, so in 1809, Edgar Allan Poe was born. His mother soon after died of tuberculosis. He moved in with his aunt and uncle. His uncle was severely abusive, but when he was a young adult, he moved off to college. His aunt died of tuberculosis. He later then met his first wife, who is the inspiration for the poem Annabelle Lee. She died of tuberculosis. He then wrote Mask of the Red Death. Met his second wife, who also happened to be his first cousin and 14 years old when he was the ripe age of 30. And she she then died of tuberculosis, so he wrote The Raven, became a hermit for the last 6 months of his life. For some reason, decided to go on a train towards, I believe, Philadelphia, where he stopped off in Baltimore, Massachusetts.
Shouts out.
Baltimore Ravens are named after Poe because he died in Baltimore. He died in a drain gutter. So the Baltimore Ravens are actually named after Edgar Allan Poe.
I think I had known that at one point, but I forgot. Okay. A lot of tuberculosis. My God.
Oh, yeah. Everyone died of TB back then.
I don't know if this is the right time to tell you, but I've had a pretty bad cough for about three weeks now.
As long as blood don't start coming out, you're good.
Blood's a good tell? Okay.
Blood's a good tell. Yeah.
Oh, I also have... I've told my wife this. I have this abscess on my neck. You know what? I'm going to show Brad because we're getting a little intimate. I should go to the urgent care. Maybe.
You should probably go to urgent care for that. Probably just really bad ingrown hair.
Yes, and my friend Levi got an ingrown hair on his abscess. On his armpit.
Ooh.
Yeah, but he was shaving his armpit, and I'm growing this out. It can happen.
It can happen. Impacted hairs.
Okay, so tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis was the theme of his childhood.
Old TB.
Well, what's funny is he believed he was cursed. So when he wrote The Raven is a stand-in not only for death itself,
okay,
but it's also a stand-in for his belief on the curse, the fact that he was cursed. So the Raven not going away and just continuously saying the word nevermore is it saying you're never going to be rid of me.
I like that.
I'm cursing you, essentially.
I like that. One thing I read last night was this critic said that the raven was despair, cogitating over wisdom, or despair considering wisdom. Like, so this idea of him being cursed with, I don't know, with genius. He's got a big forehead, man. He's got this.
He really does.
Very intelligent forehead. We'll throw a picture on there, and my God.
He really does, though.
But believing he was cursed, like, there's something to that.
Well, and that's why some people believe that he ended up going to Baltimore. Ended up in Baltimore was because he wanted to get away from the despair. He wanted to get away from the curse. The only way to get away from the curse was to get away from his chambers.
Okay.
And the place where him and his wife lived. I'm people.
Wait. Okay, you're the okay. Well, God, I'm even thinking about like having to get to leave a certain place to appreciate another place, and he took that to such an extreme where can I hold it for a second? Where he's like,
of course.
Yeah, let me get out of here, but it's showing itself as a curse. Oh, here's another question I have. How much do you think his writings are him versus a character? That's a pretty big English question in general.
Poe is and was the master of horror. He wrote during the Romantic period. So during the Romantic period, as you know, I'm sure, as an English major, during the Romantic period, there was a lot of talk of big buildings and these castles and these amazing like architecture.
Yeah.
He took it and made it to where the Romantic period, at least in his stories, is about everyday settings.
Okay.
And so in a lot of his stories, it probably is a character, but the character is still assumed to be Poe. So just like you and I might play a character when we're in front of a classroom, he's playing a character when he's writing. And so, I mean, both is the answer.
Okay.
It's definitely him because, I mean, no one else is crazy enough to have some of these thoughts about putting people under the floorboards and hearing the heartbeat.
Yeah, you can't be like, oh yeah, Edgar Allan Poe was a freaking murderer and he wanted to do that.
But,
yeah.
And then that even brings in the argument that Professor Feather and Dr. Tar, I believe it is, or it's Dr. Feather, Professor Tar.
Tar my feathers.
Basically Tar and Feather. I can never remember the order.
Classic.
But that story is about him actually visiting a mental institution and then thinking about, well, what if the people ran it? Not the government, not the security.
You mentioned this one, yeah.
But what if the patients ran it?
What does that one end up? What does it end up looking like?
So throughout the story, you find out that there was a big breakout at one point, and so they broke. The patients broke out of their rooms, whatever. So to keep order in the hospital, they allow their patients, once they got back control, they allow their patients to go anywhere on the grounds so long as they don't leave like the grounds.
Okay.
And if you think you're a chicken, they will let you act like a chicken for a week, and you'll probably be over it in a week. Like that's probably what it is. And so what they ended up doing, what you end up finding out at the very end is Poe goes to a library back home or a bookstore back home to find works from these two gentlemen who were running this asylum.
Uh-huh.
And he can't find it. He can't find anything from them. But as a doctor, you should have a dissertation. So he can't find anything from them. So there's 3 interpretations. The first is that they don't exist and it's all in his head.
Okay, Shutter Island. Sorry, spoilers.
Shutter Island is great.
Oh, there's a lot of debt to Poe, sounds like, whether they're conscious or not.
The second interpretation is that they existed, but that it was patients that were running the facility at that point.
Like they forged they're not doctors. They
basically took over the facility, killed all the staff.
That sounds like a movie in my head. I don't know which one it is, but I've seen a movie like that reveal like we're actually not the real doctor. Maybe a Tales from the Crypt episode actually. Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Shutter Island, Tales from the Crypt, man. And then the third interpretation, quite boringly, is just that Poe was at the wrong bookstore trying to find it.
Oh.
which I think is hilarious that that's even an option with a Poe, with a Poe book.
I forgot. Oh, wait, what do you mean?
Like just that it could be something so simple and something so bland.
Oh, okay.
As an interpretation.
But we still consider it as an interpretation. Yeah.
Right. Because, I mean, it is a realistic possibility.
Edgar Allan Poe, Barnes and Noble.
Papa.
Papa Schmo.
Home Goods.
Wait, what was that story called that we were just talking about?
Dr. Tar, Professor Feather.
Okay. I still gotta. I went through a couple hundred. Usually when I've been doing these, I've been just like I kind of scroll looking for when I've started some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one called "How to Write a Blackwood Article," but yeah, going through that criticism last night, like there's literally a page collected of it's on my phone. Oh well. Of just a mix of scathing remarks and just like, but also high praise at the same time. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the early years I don't want to say made a lot of enemies. It's not like we're like Drake out here, like, oh damn, who's gonna get me? Ooh, everyone's coming after me. But it was I guess a mix of jealousy, but mainly when they came to critiquing, they're like, why do you write about such dark things? Why couldn't he break from that and write? Okay, this one got to me. I was hearing them out until they said, why can't he write about happier subjects? And I'm like, peace and happiness. Yeah.
His life was full of death.
Yeah, yeah. Write what we know. Yeah. Why can't we, Mr. Poe? Why are you so dark? Like, what? But actually taking it to a serious, like not accepting him because of that.
Well, and I mean, there's arguments without Poe, we wouldn't have Lovecraft, we wouldn't have, King, we wouldn't have the Call of Cthulhu and the Cthulhu universe.
Those two were on there as praising him for their foundation, his foundation. Keep saying there. Mr. Poe is becoming plural. He's all-encompassing, I guess. There's that, and
the Holy Trinity of Poe.
Yeah, which we had to find out what's the Poe trifecta.
Can you hear me? We're gonna find it out. This is the moment in the video where me and Mr. Powers didn't plan this out. I want you to find out there's something behind us. Have you seen it? I'm making this up. I'm sorry.
I can't. Okay, Poe as a critic, he actually wrote like, not only like solid literary reviews, but he also wrote like criticism about how to write and what the Raven might mean. And there was this one artist who said, "Hey, it was Ravel actually, the one that goes, yeah, Maurice wrote, I pretending that I know him that well, but he's like, yeah, my best friend thinks that Poe was lying about that, but I believe what he said about the Raven, he actually meant." So, yeah, him as critic, do you have experience with that or like his?
So not a ton, but what I do know about him as a critic is that Poe was an interesting character when it came to that. Uh-huh. He very much liked to critique himself more than anyone else, obviously.
Okay.
And so when he was giving that interpretation of the Raven, I think I know which one you're talking about.
I read it too, but I forget. God, I gotta reread it.
I do too. There is a sense of an argument to make whether it's true or not.
Okay.
And so the common interpretations of the Raven, he left it very open-ended.
Okay.
And
good, I think.
The interpretation that he gave, I believe, was that the Raven was a stand-in for death.
Okay.
And darkness and despair and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing. But he also made a point in his life where every story he had didn't just have one interpretation.
Okay.
And so for him to say there's only one interpretation of the Raven, or there's only one interpretation of Telltale, or Tar and Feather, or any of the things that he's written,
yeah,
it's disingenuous.
Yeah, I'm trying to just imagine Shakespeare like, Hamlet's actually supposed to be read like this. And maybe, well, I gotta reread, maybe he's talking about moves he's making in the Raven. But this is reminding me, like, when you think Poe, like if you had to give someone 3 Poe stories,
Yeah.
so like, where do I start, or what are the best? Like,
Yeah.
besides Raven, because I know Raven's
Yeah.
pretty
right.
good.
So starting out on Poe, I would go Black Cat.
Black Cat. Okay.
Black Cat is a phenomenal just overview of the kind of writing he has.
Okay.
Cask of Amontillado. That's one that's
one that I kind of remember actually. Okay.
and it's typically read in middle schools. But Cask of Amontillado is a good overview of like his writing style and how he writes in his longer pieces.
Okay.
And then, honestly, for my personal favorite, I would go Tar and Feather. But if I wasn't to say Tar and Feather, because I've said that 15 times already, I would probably go Mask of the Red Death, just because it shows you how affected he was by the deaths in his life.
Okay. Mask of Red Death. What's the premise on that one again?
So, Mask of the Red Death, essentially this man dressed in all red goes to a castle party. The people in the kingdom are, partying it up, woot woot. And when this man dressed in all red goes into the party, essentially anyone he touches dies. They cough up blood and they die. And so it's a large part of talking about his past because of tuberculosis.
Oh, okay.
Because it is a stand-in for tuberculosis.
Yeah, he's got range as much as it's like, oh, he's the guy who writes about dark, depressing, dare we say emo goth. No, he's got some range, yeah.
Well, and it was also proof that he could write about less dark things, because he was writing about this ball, how amazing it was, how great the party was, and then he writes about the guy that comes in and kills everyone. So it was very much a response to the criticism as well, where it's like, you can write about things that are like this, but I would rather write about this.
Yeah, even thinking of these concepts, ball, castle, romance, Kingdom by the Sea with Annabelle Lee.
Right.
There's that mix of that romance and gothic era, but then, I don't know, what's it called? The House of Usher?
Yeah, oh god.
That was a good series, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I thought they did a good job. But just this range showing like all parts of America and even glimpses at Europe. I don't think he's a one-track pony.
He's not.
Okay.
He's not. And Annabelle Lee is actually... So what people get confused is they think he's just a dark, depressing guy.
Uh-huh.
A lot of his poems are actually love poems. So
yes.
The Raven is a dedication to Lenore.
Yes.
Annabelle Lee is a dedication to, Annabelle Lee, his wife before Lenore. And so when they like to talk about him being dark and depressing, people don't realize that a lot of his poems are about love. And he actually dedicated himself for a few nights. I don't know if I said this earlier or not, but when he wrote Annabelle Lee, it was true. He would go out to her grave by the sea and sleep by her for weeks on end.
Okay, I like this a lot.
Because he missed her so much.
I like this a lot.
And so for him, he is very dark and depressing. And the way
don't get it twisted, he is.
The way he portrays it, very dark and depressing.
Okay.
But also the way that he writes, or the things that he writes about, if you dig through the depressing language and look at the core themes, they're actually really sweet.
Okay. He's got... Good. Yeah, imagine just writing off Poe, like, this guy doesn't care, he's dark. Those early critics, like, why's he got to write about these sick and twisted things, but not seeing any kind of good in it at all, as if we're not all sick and twisted in a sec.
We all are.
We are what... We're going to... Wait, you don't mind going to the bell, right?
I don't
Just
mind
in
going
case.
to the bell.
We're going to get jump scared by the bell because it's Halloween, but and maybe it's the name of the series. But I do want to... I put in my dedication to this bad boy a couple years ago. An actual quote from Poe, and yeah, it's romantic. So it reminded me and my wife. This is what it says. He to her in brief was a not unhandsome and not ignoble, but somewhat portionless, somewhat eccentric, and rather lame young man. She to him was the Egeria of his dreams, the Venus Aphrodite that sprang in full and supernal loveliness from the bright foam upon the storm-tormented ocean of his thoughts. To write him off as a Papa Poe, to write him off as, man, he's dark and he's dealing with. It's kind of just nowadays if someone just said what, like Stephen King is smart or.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's even look at fucking Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Shakespeare was. Venus and Adonis, one of the most popular
Shouts out. Okay.
poems
Yep.
from Shakespeare, is about a multi-thousand-year-old goddess
Tell
who portrays as a 40-year-old woman
Yep.
wanting to sleep with a potentially 13, 14-year-old boy. So
We had a. Did Hallfield read this with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hallfield did read this
So what I remember too is they kept copies of Venus and Adonis, like in Shakespeare's time, by their bedstand, and it was kind of like hot material. It's like, ooh, want to read Venus and Adonis? Like, what's going on? Yeah. So you're kind of saying like he goes into those areas too.
Like, if we're going to reduce Shakespeare and all of the wonderful things he did down to a few, down to the surface level.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
Surface level on that is, child predators.
Yes.
Surface level on Romeo and Juliet is two idiots who don't know how to not kill themselves.
Yeah.
Who could have waited 30 seconds and they'd be fine.
So kind of with Hamlet too, it's like just guy doesn't kill his dad, just do it. It's a little more
right. So like going surface level on anyone is just crazy. I mean, to go surface level on Poe just doesn't do justice to the things that he's written.
What about this is it Cask of
Amontillado?
Amontillado. For some reason, this one's standing out to me the most. Like memorable to me.
Yeah.
It's a pretty short one.
Right.
Can you run through the story and kind of tell me why you like it, or is that a little too open-ended?
Yeah, no, I can definitely. So one of the the main character, who we actually get a name for the main character in this one instead of just it being Poe.
Nice.
So
very diverse as act. Okay.
It is, and it showcases his ability to write from third person.
Okay.
So we'll just call him M because his name is really confusing.
Okay.
So M doesn't like this guy named Amontillado. And so he, long story short, chains him up in a basement, and then builds a wall around him.
I'm gonna do this to you, by the way. Okay, sorry. Okay, chains him in the basement, builds a wall. Okay.
So builds a wall around him where Amontillado ends up dying, and then I believe it's the police come in. I would have to reread it, but I believe the police come in, and he's like, oh yeah, he's in the wall. So Poe likes to do this thing where he puts people into the infrastructure of houses, and then
common literature trope now, or horror trope now.
Yeah, and then he shows the police that the person is in the house.
Okay.
And it's so Cask of Amontillado. So what's interesting about that is it shows Poe's.
Wait, I'm gonna scream real quick. Sorry, recording the video. You're next though. But you are literally next. I promise. Oh, you don't you even? I can't even. I don't know where to begin. But we'll see in a sec. Okay. So he's in the walls. The police are showing. He really is next. I don't know what our focus is going to be. It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Should be Emerson.
A debate. Okay.
A debate on Emerson.
We might just do that.
So Cask of Amontillado.
Remind me about if I got something good. Emerson didn't like Poe. Sorry, I got some things to say about that.
No,
too.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Putting people into the infrastructure of walls is another layer to the things that he wrote.
Okay.
Basically saying, like, we're often trapped within our valuable or our physical items.
Okay.
And so those are going to be the death of us, essentially.
Yeah.
I haven't read Cask of Amontillado in years, so there's probably a couple things in there that I got, a little off. But Cask of Amontillado is a good start because it shows Poe's ability to write from that third person.
Just that theme you're talking about. It kind of just covers vanity and materialism. Like,
Right.
all right, there's a book he brings around and he comes to my classroom sometimes and he quotes from it. It rhymes with schmomminess tanifesto, but somewhat jokingly sometimes, but somewhat we dive a little deep. That's a running joke. Anyway, about this. I also gotta stop doing it because I call him Edgar Allan Schmo. I like Edgar Allan. I like him a lot. Anyway, couple things about the cast. I picture. So he had a lot of, not enemies like Drake, but there was a lot of tension between other literary critics, and I look at it sometimes. I'm like, oh, is this kind of a battle of the minds? Is M and what's the guy's? It's in the title, the cask of.
Oh, Amontillado.
These two, it's like battle of the brains. Is this some? Not to say like Poe's like saying I'm gonna do this to you later and then put you in the wall, but there's got to be some kind of writing of the tension there, taking it out. Why can't the critics like enjoy that? I don't know. Why can't his enemies enjoy that?
Well, I mean, you can even read it that way, where the critics are trying to put him inside of a wall.
True, the critics are they're coming after him. They're the evil ones.
Right, and so you can even read it that way, where he's trying to where they're trying to put him in the wall. They're trying to put him into this small enclosed area.
I like that.
To where he doesn't want to be there.
I just wonder, like, may I again? What was he like to talk to? What was he? Was he scathing? Was he nice? He had to have been nice to some people.
I mean, we're both English majors. We know he was probably pretentious because all English majors are pretentious.
Ain't that right? You've seen me. You've seen the faces that I've made. You've seen it.
This is weird!
Solar eclipse.
So Emerson.
Yeah.
Two things that I saw. He has like the shortest quote on him, and it's like, "Oh, the Jingle Man," and that's his nickname for Edgar Allan Poe, the Jingle Man. Talk about reducing someone to the lowest, like the reductionist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, he's not even quivering in his grave. I think he's above quivering in his grave. He's a little more sprawling than that. But my God. And then there was another thing about Emerson. Oh, he said, I cannot see anything in him. And it's like, guys, I'm going to get close because I'm going to get vulnerable. I am very gullible and weak when it comes to, I like Emerson a lot. So when he says that about my friend Edgar Allan Poe here, I'm like, man, Mr. Papa Emerson. Here you go. So when he says that, it's like my dad saying, hey, you better stop reading that, mother. That's how weak I am when it comes to criticism.
Right.
But at the same time, I will say he had a funeral. Some guy worded it this way. He said, it took 10 years for him to like get a plot in Baltimore, and then like 26 years to get something written on it. And then the only person who went to his funeral was Walt Whitman. And I'm like, oh, that made me like Walt. Yeah, that made me like Walt Whitman. So Emerson's hating, and then Whitman goes, and then Whitman defended him with a couple paragraphs I really liked. Right. But I mean, Whitman as father of literature, kind of cool imagining him come to Poe's defense. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I know this is a lot of speculation. The fact that I usually don't like judging an author about based on their life, especially if it's negative. But he's such a fascinating person. I think, in your experience, what has been students' responses to Poe? Because my best friend, Levi, he's like, dude, I like Edgar Allan Poe. He knows about Edgar Allan Poe. Kids like him a lot. Yeah.
So,
what's the fascination there?
One of the things that I draw kids into with like mythology and folklore when we learn about Lovecraft is I mentioned Poe, and that Poe was his biggest inspiration. And so when we mention that, and when I talk about that, the kids are often more likely to open up to it because they especially in a low-income area, they understand what it's like to be in his shoes, with family members maybe not dying but leaving, constant tension in the household, constant just issues after issues. So a lot of them can connect to Poe, even though, we talk about teaching old dead white men all the time and how that's bad.
It's my number one flaw. I'm only I gotta work on that.
But this is the one old dead white man where all the kids know it, they understand it, they appreciate it, and they more often than not love it.
You can kind of tell by his face. Just seeing his face, you're like, damn, that guy suffered.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's why there's a little thing of stitches on it. But
nice.
But yeah, so the kids often, their response is positive. I mean, I don't know about your experience.
Yeah. Well, even when I asked them, like, we did this questionnaire, big questionnaire, like kind of a speed run, and one of them was like, "What's your favorite writer? Who's your favorite writer?" 30%, I don't know. 10% Mr. Thomas, because they got an A. But a lot of Poe. And on one hand, I want to say, okay, it's just because he's accessible, but no, it's been about 200. No, can we think of any author that this old who has that much pull? I can't.
I mean, not that I can, no.
I can't. I'm amongst the youth. And I don't think it's just even a curriculum thing. I mean, yeah, Poe's in our books, but among other people, he's just, something about him is very alluring. Mm-hmm. Is it a horror thing? Oh, I'm in puberty now. I got to go through horror.
Right.
Gosh, we could kind of transition into horror. I don't know.
Oh, we could. But
Black Cat. Tell me about that, because I have a black cat.
So Black Cat. Man tortures cats, tortures animals, kills animals, goes through this whole rigmarole, and ends up dying by the same method that he would torture the cats with and kill the cats with. And then all that's left at the end is a singular black cat.
Oh.
And so it's very alluring in the sense of like, you give.